Welcome to Baseball Biz on Deck. I am Mark Corbett, and Mr. Matt Germain is here, and we are here to entertain you on all the little vicissitudes of the game called baseball with major leagues, and beyond that too. But mostly, we're here to have fun, so we hope you are too. Hey, Matt, how you doing, brother?
I'm great. I had a dream about who was going to win the World Series, and then by the time I woke up to put the bet in and lock it in Vegas, it just escaped me who the actual winning team was going to be. So
Oh,
I'm
dude.
still in limbo. Unfortunately, I can't see the crystal ball anymore, and we're going to have to kind of try to resolve it, just by rubbing brain cells together, Mark.
Gosh, brother, that just sounds like so much work. I like the dream part better. I mean,
Yeah.
if Caesars gets access to it, we can go ahead and make bets while we dream. It'd be great, but I
So
don't
here's
know.
the question. If you do that once and it works, do you do it again?
Oh, you know where I am seriously on gambling is no on any of it. I'll put down a $2 bet on the Derby each year, and that's about it. But wow, no, man, it's going to be an interesting year. Here we are. We are about 25% of the way, a quarter of the way into the season, and everything has been set. Matt's dreams are going to come true. We're gonna hopefully we'll find out what that is. There'll be some get rid of the cognitive dissonance that we have every day and see if that can rise again.
Mhm.
But man, oh man, Matt, it has been interesting. This is a raise up edition, boys and girls. But first, I'd like to thank four of the baseball players who joined me yesterday. So there's some of them are coaches, and even one's a manager and one coaches with the A's these days too. So they were with me yesterday, and we talked a lot about bullying and how, with young players and specifically young girls and women, how this is affecting them, and steps hopefully that folks can take to make better decisions and support these young girls. So we'll see, we'll put that up in a couple of days after that. But so that was quite a great experience to be able to spend the time with them and hear, because they work with a lot of these young girls through MLB develops and some of the different programs and camps where they have them for a few days. So it was
Mhm.
very enlightening.
Nice. No, that's great to get you want to look at the game from every perspective, and that definitely touches on something that I think we've all seen or experienced, or it's an important part of talking about it because just saying, "Oh, we dealt with it as a coach or as a whatever," like it's not enough because people have to be cognizant of the fact that they're going to be impacting others if they decide to indulge in a little bullying here and there, or let their kids allow them to actually bully a little bit and say, "Oh, they're just kids being kids." Like,
Oh
yeah,
gosh.
you hear that so much, and they think of it from such an innocent point of view instead of thinking of it from the impact of that child's teammates, of that child's parents,
Yeah.
everybody that's kind of around it. So I always tell my daughters, I encourage them to speak up when they see stuff like that, and I think that's the best way to address it. It gets it out in the open. The person usually ends up embarrassed, like they don't even realize sometimes, the impact that they're having by doing what they're doing. So sometimes they do, but you address that another way.
Well, we can all address what we see in front of us, and if we all do more of that, if we all help support our kids and give them guidance on how they should behave around others, I think that's a good start. We just need to do more of it. I think. I want to look across, because one of the things I was hearing from these women is that there appears to be more of it happening, and they're hearing more of it than they did, maybe even like 5 years ago. So,
Mhm.
but it's coming back to the Tampa Bay Rays. It
Mhm.
has been an interesting week. Uh, I don't know. I take it as a given if we're going down to Miami that we're going to win this series. Okay, we're going to win at least 2 out of 3. And how I know I'm texting with our buddy Lou Schiff, down there during the games, and uh, it what didn't turn out that way this week, Matt.
No, the Rays have a knack for bringing you through series, and you feel like by the end of it, you feel like Super Dave. Remember Super Dave? He's
Oh
all
yeah.
like torn apart and in a heap in the corner. Your emotions are all a wreck. You don't understand why this is happening and why they couldn't do that earlier and why this happened later. So the Marlins series and the Astros series have just been examples of the roller coaster ride of what the Rays are going through right now, early in 25.
It's like a lot of times being a fan of the game and being a fan of your team, and sometimes just being a fan of the game. You can find moments that are just really outstanding. And I enjoyed watching Max Meyer pitch for the Marlins. He was good. He was amazing to watch. And then the first immaculate inning of the year. I think there's only 118 that have been written down in MLB history, but you don't want to be the subject of the recipient of that, but we were. But to watch Quantrill have that immaculate inning, I mean, that was something. That's one of those things I was telling you earlier. I go back and watch that inning over and over, something that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, a good old Canadian kid, Cal Quantrill. His father, Paul, pitched for the Blue Jays for a long time. And everybody had always hoped that he would end up in Toronto at some point so that he could wear that jersey as well. But good for him, like to have that. They're like the little notches on your belt, right? Like you talk about the cycle for hitters. Well, I think an immaculate inning is above that. Like it's
Oh
a
yeah.
little harder even, to achieve that. So it means a lot to them, I'm sure, and it's one that I'm sure he'll be replaying with his dad next to him, and they'll be enjoying it together with a couple of beers because it's special.
9 pitches, man. I mean, just to see that one batter up, bang, bang, bang. Whoops. Next one up, bang, bang, bang. Third one up, bang, bang, bang. I'm sorry, that was an inning. I thought maybe just that was at one at bat, and Rondo had been there. He or Yandy had taken him into to 9 pitches. But no, I'm sorry, I stepped out of the room to get a Coke. Too bad.
Exactly. I think they should have another name for an immaculate inning that would be the Pedro Martinez style one, where you hit somebody with a pitch somewhere along that 10 pitch stretch. So 9 strikes, but one hit batter. That's a Pedro Martinez special right there.
Oh gosh. No, it was fun to watch, like I said, and see some of those pitchers doing what they were doing. And some of our guys had a little more difficulty. Even when our pitchers are on spot, or I should say spot on, that the offense just hasn't been able to completely come through, Matt. And it's sad. I haven't looked at the numbers, but runners in scoring position, left on base, those numbers, they can't be appealing right now. I mean, even when I'm watching today with the win we had today against the Astros, I kept looking. How many guys did we leave on freaking base? It was nuts.
I think you can blame a lot of times the young players, but what's happened early this year, like in April especially, the young players were the ones that were knocking in the runs and making the best of it. And the veterans were just having a heck of a time, joining the party sort of thing. But today, finally, we saw Yandy Diaz kind of step in and we saw Brandon Lowe step in and have some success. And I know the left on base one is a controversial, stat. I think you'll get people that actually support looking at it and say, oh, if you have a high left on base one, it means that you're not doing your job. But then you're like, okay, but the guys are getting on base. So it's just a matter of timing those hits, and so you can have a really bad game through your lineup, but end up having guys on base at the right time, maybe a couple of walks, and then the guy gets a hit, and then all of a sudden you look like you were a better team than you were the day before, but the day before you had 15 guys left on base. So, it's just timing and unluckiness. And you could see it in Kevin Cash's face sometimes, the frustration of, I just want the guys to come through in those moments because it energizes and it's self-feeding and the guys start believing that it's going to happen, which I think in baseball is very important. If you don't believe that it's going to happen, you're almost going up to the plate defeated.
The confidence factor plays big into it, and it's timing on whoever's coming up to bat. You've got two guys on base, and suddenly you realize, and I don't mean this against this fella, but I guess because I think about him so much, he always seems the one that has to come up, and that was poor Taylor Walls. I see him time and again, and we got two people, on base. There's already two outs, and I think the weight of carrying that as any batter is a challenge. And Taylor was out today, and I got to tell you that today, by the way, is Wednesday, May 21st, and he was out for I think a groin strain, something along those lines. And who was it? Carson? Who did we have in there today? The Australian player.
Curtis Mead.
Curtis Mead. I keep wanting to say Carson Mead. I know that's not it. Curtis
Nope.
Mead. Sorry, Carson. But Curtis Mead. And I'm looking before the game and I'm looking at batting average, say, he's had a tough year. He's got like an under one batting. I think it's 0.98 or something of that nature. But he didn't let that stop him today. He
No.
was on it. What was it like 2 out of 3? I think he had bats he did something with today.
Right. He hit a home run off of Brown as well, which isn't, easy to do. I think he was a catalyst for the offense, and you're talking about leaving guys on base. Well, he was one of the ones that actually got them going. And
Yep.
Chandler joined in, Aranda joined in. Everybody, like when you look at the lineup from today's game, the encouraging part is 7 out of 9 players hit safely. Now, I do want to point out that Ben Rortvedt's OPS is 280. Like that means that there's 4 hitters in the Rays lineup that have a higher batting average than Ben Rortvedt's OPS. I really hope that they find a way to improve, because you can have somebody that's like that when you're having a productive day like this, right? 8 guys get or 7 guys getting hits. 3 of them had multiple hits. That's great. You're being productive as a lineup, and you got the runs to show. But you can't have somebody that just produces nothing, like is literally flatline in your lineup consistently. I mean, there's a reason they took the National League out and they made it full DH. Um, so I don't know when the Rays make a change, but I foresee one coming at the catcher position for sure. For Taylor, he's had stints where he's shown the actual, tenacity and energy and versatility with the bunts and the speed a little bit here and there and a little bit of power here and there. So I get it. It's encouraging to see glimpses of it. The consistency would be great to have, at it. But what's encouraging about these last 2 wins against the Astros, Mark, is that you're seeing them at a time when we're getting closer and closer to Ha-Seong Kim coming back.
Mm.
When Ha-Seong Kim comes back, that whole chemistry thing and how much playing time everybody gets changes. There's a possibility Curtis Mead goes down to the minors. So now you have an extra, at bat in the lineup that is a lot harder on the pitcher on the opposing side, theoretically, right? Assuming Ha-Seong Kim has a lot of success with the Rays. But yeah, if the Rays can figure out I think Danny Jansen's kind of stepped up his game a little bit. If they can figure out that second catcher and just get more consistency so that they can actually get guys off the bench and they can play a little bit more matchup, with late in the games. And I think you're seeing Kevin Cash sit on his hands a lot of times and not making many switches because he's handcuffed with the lineup he has right now in terms of what he can call on.
Yeah, pardon me. Today's game with the Astros had so many elements that if you haven't watched any game yet this season, watch this one because there's so many different elements to it. I mean, having as many players as we did have a hit, get on base, then having having the 2 low boys. Josh gets up there, first pitch, bam, home run, right there, and then the other Lau, so low and Lau, Brandon comes up there, first pitch, bam, home run, 2 home runs back to back. I mean, that's part of the magic and excitement of a game, and I mean, and to me, that was just one part of it. The other one of the pieces too, you mentioned Kevin. Today's game, Kevin, sometimes you see a bit of a not frown on his face, a little bit of on a call, or and maybe he will contest something. But I don't remember seeing him as intense today as I ever have on contesting something with an umpire. And folks, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. The Astro player is up there, and as we pitch the ball to him, the ball hits the base of the knob of the bat, and then I think comes up and skins across his hand. However, if you look at the first base umpire, he calls it as a strike and being out. Well, after probably about 20 seconds, then the Astros want to call it into question. And I think that's the part that ticked Kevin off more than anything is the length of time it took for them to do this.
He's absolutely right.
So just as that, after them talking with the Astros manager for a little bit, you see the ump go over there and press the mic and get ready to say something, and he doesn't get a word out of his mouth before you see him turn to his left, and here comes Kevin Cash walking right up to him. It's like, we got to talk, bud. And he goes out there. After a few seconds, you see Rodney Linares. He's in the picture over beside Kevin because he has this sense that this is a very sensitive moment for Kevin. He's got a lot of energy behind this. And he goes on, and we didn't need John Boy to give us what was being said. But the back and forth is going and going. And I don't know what he finally said, but at one point, the umpire says, "You're out of here." And Kevin had been doing some gesticulating, and and then after he's been out of there, his fingers being pointed practically into the face of the umpire and trying to still give him some correction on, hey, didn't you see your guy called him out? Well, all that continues. And to the point where Rodney has actually wrapped his arms around Kevin and trying to restrain him from continuing to pursue the umpire. He pulls him back, and Kevin gets the sense that, okay. So you see him step away, and he's 3 or 4 or 5 steps in the dugout. And it just must have glitched inside his head that this is not right. And he turned around, walked out of the dugout, and came out and had more to say.
I was waiting for him to go Tommy Lasorda and start kicking sand on him. That's, I don't know where the rules stand on that anymore. But
yeah.
He was lit up. He was lit up, and he was completely right. Like you can't bend the rules, whenever you want just because and say, oh, well. So I think that's what irritated Kevin more. And the fact that he's had it happen to him so often where, oh, you've waited too long. It's too bad. You're going to have to live with it now. And, you have it happen to you so many times. All of a sudden it doesn't happen to the other team. Like, well, why is there a double standard? That's frustrating. Luckily for us, it didn't end up in a loss.
Well, there's a bit of a theory about when managers get excited and upset and get thrown out. And if there was a theory to that it actually energizes a team, that could have been proven today, I guess, because that was right at the end of the top of the 8th inning. And at the bottom, when we took our at bats, we scored 3 runs, brought up another 3 runs in the bottom of the 8th. So I don't know if they were ultra incentivized from Kevin's performance or not, but it helped seal the win.
Yeah, it was a needed win. Like the Rays have lost so many different series in tight games, and I think that's what irritates us all with the left on base thing that you're talking about, is that there's so many of those opportunities all the way through the game. Like at some point they have to cash in one of these guys and burst through. And I haven't done the research yet to see how many games the Rays have lost by 2 runs or less, but I have a feeling it's a lot. Like it feels like it's happened quite a bit so far this year. So at least people would say they're in the games, right? And that shows, that their pitching is holding them in there. And that's what I wanted to talk about for today's game as well, is Taj Bradley had a very mature game, right? And he didn't have many, lapses in judgment. Yes, he's still giving up the home runs and had a couple of issues, but I think the tightness of his pitches around the strike zone and not getting himself into trouble and not giving in hitters counts was great today. And then I think that's what you want to see. You wanted to see him go 6. He did so in just 85 pitches, which I mean, that's a very solid outing for a young guy building on his stuff. And I think what I saw a lot was that all of his pitches were close to what was being asked for by the catcher, if
Right.
that makes sense. So there was nothing outlandish, nothing like, sometimes I think Danny Jansen almost got decapitated once because he had a cross up with the pitcher. Like, so there was none of that nonsense. Everything seemed
Yeah.
smooth and professional. And so you're starting to see them get into a rhythm. And Ryan Pepio is kind of on that same track as well. So I think those two are starting to show glimpses of being in a really good place for this year.
Wow. Pardon me.
I've had the same thing, Mark. I've been fighting a little tickle in the throat that's been popping in and out whenever it wants.
Yeah.
So I get it. I don't know if it's COVID or what it is, but
Oh, don't say that word. Don't say that word. Gosh,
uh,
here in Florida, especially, they'll arrest you if you say that word.
yeah, you should wear a shirt that just says COVID on it.
I have seen some like get a black shirt with big long, yeah, big tall letters COVID. Uh, anyway, no, I was just saying with Taj, yeah, he had a rough start, the first couple of batters, but he tied it down after that, and that's encouraging to see, him achieving that as a pitcher. And I'm looking forward to seeing that day when Shane McClanahan actually
Hmm.
comes and takes the mound again.
Yeah.
But you were talking about Hassan Kim, and I definitely want to see him. There's going to be a new face of the Rays. I mean, because it seems like we had people with injuries, and we got all these young kids coming up, and then Shane being somebody was, in this year's Rasmussen come back up.
So I think that one of the considerations, of who, because I've been asked when Ha-Sung Kim comes up, who gets sent down. So to me, the automatic is Curtis Mead, just because you can use Taylor Walls in all the positions that Curtis Mead plays, and you're much more comfortable using Taylor Walls off the bench as a pinch runner, late in games as a defensive replacement, shifting him over. The guy that it impacts once that happens is Jose Caballero, who doesn't play as much in the infield at that point. So then it begs the question, okay, Jose Caballero plays more outfield. He's a right-handed bat. He's versatile enough to come in and play shortstop, third base, second base. So he unseats Johnny DeLuca
Mhm.
as that depth outfield piece, who's a super utility basically. So the question is, will there be room for Johnny DeLuca when he returns? I have no idea what the timeline is on his injury. I know there's wide ranges of, oh, he may not come back this year to it's coming up in the next 2 weeks. I've heard everything in between. So as soon as I see his name in the FCL thing, I'll let you know. But a guy that is in the FCL right now doing his rehab is Jake Mangum.
Ah,
So what happens with him? He could. I think it's tomorrow. He could end up being in Durham. So then you're looking at, okay, well, how long does he spend in Durham? I know he has options, so he could end up remaining there for a little bit of time. But you also have Andrew Stevenson there. You have a lot of guys getting playing time in Durham as well. So and then also in the FCL getting a rehab in, just as extra information, is Kevin Kelly. So he's also somebody that's going to come in and try to help the pen out as well. So you're talking three guys right there mentioned: Jake Mangum, Kevin Kelly, and Ha-Sung Kim. There's reinforcements coming to give the Rays more options. But the more that happens, the more the roster crunch starts happening because you
yeah.
have guys in Double A that are starting to beg for promotions. You have a very full AAA roster already. You've got all these rehab guys coming back in. At some point, something's going to give, Mark, and the Rays
Mhm.
are going to have to start making some moves the healthier they get.
There's no doubt about that. I mean, it's a great problem to have, but at the same time, you see these players and you want to see them have the opportunity as soon as possible. I'll
Mhm.
hate to see it when some of them go away. God
Mhm.
knows I felt like that with Isaac Paredes.
He had a funny, home run against the Rays, and kind of, I don't know why he was smiling so much, but I think I can guess.
Yeah. And I think in the series he may have had two home runs against us,
Yep.
but he my gosh. No, I love watching him play. This goes back to seeing, wow, yes, we love the Rays. It is good to be able to respect the talent of other players. And you got to wonder when they're playing their old team if it's nice to just kind of twist the Dirk into the bod there just a little bit, But it was good to watch him as well. We were talking before the show about attendance, and I've got some numbers on this rivalry weekend, but I know you were doing a little bit deeper dig with baseball reference overall with what's going on with the year. It's always people are saying, oh, nobody likes baseball anymore. Nobody's attending, nobody's watching, but you've got some numbers there that actually give a little sunshine.
Yeah, so just to start with the basics, this is all comparing 2025 to 2024. So the year over year increase.
Yep.
What you have just in the very basic way to start is 16 teams that have an increase on a game to game basis compared to what they had in 2024. So that's a good thing. More than half the teams are good to go. When you look at the top three that have the biggest increase, the Mets spent a crazy amount of money over the offseason, and they're seeing the benefits of that. So right now, their year over year difference is an increase of 289,000 fans,
Hmm.
which is significant. When you talk about a price of a ticket, if you, I don't know what you want to average it out at, but you could easily say that they've added millions to their coffers, and it'll keep growing for the rest of the year more than likely, especially with the success that they're having. After that, you've got the Detroit Tigers that are 150,000, and you've got the Dodgers that have added 100,000. Just below them, I'll just mention as well, which is very interesting, is the Athletics, which have added 97,000 to what they had managed in the Oakland Stadium. Now we have to remember there was kind of a boycott last year of them, and they were only averaging 5,900 fans in 2024. So what they've done this year is basically doubled that. So they're at 10,176 per game. So that's why they're seeing the big increase. But overall, it's added 372,000 fans. Uh, so we're what now? May 21st. So from end of March, April, May, that's not a very long period of time,
No.
to add, a third of a million fans in the stands. And you have to think, okay, well, that's fans in the stands. What are their ratings going to be like when they start announcing those? And what are they gonna, because that's where a lot of the money gets tied into for the baseball teams. How many of those fans are gambling, your favorite activity? And I think, you know, any any team that's going to be asked to invest more money in their stadiums, in their players, and their anything that has to do with baseball, to see those increases just encourages more activity and more commitment to your team. And that's the other thing I was going to mention is within those teams, in the top 10, you have the D-backs who have spent a little bit of money. You have the Royals who have spent a little bit of money. You still have the Angels. Like the Angels have added 88,000 fans between the beginning of the year and now. So it's teams that are making good investments, and they're showing the fans that they actually care about the outcomes of the games, and the fans are appreciating it. So it's great to see.
I believe recently the Angels won a series against the Dodgers.
Yes.
And I said, yeah, okay. I mean, if I was a fan, I'd say, yeah, I'll buy a ticket. And I'm sure they feel the impact of them spending the money on the team. So that's really good to hear. I was curious too, because like you said, the A's are in a whole different location right now and last year between boycotts and everything else to boot. And I hope everything works out for them real well. I know between with what they're doing with Vegas, um, I think they've actually put a shovel in the earth. I don't think they've done much more than that, but they're still trying to get the uh, verification, I think, from local government with what all is going to be there. So they've they haven't said, "Oh yes, we're going to go ahead and build the stadium completely," but they're not slowing down because of it either.
Well, it's a good point though, Mark, because let's just put it this way. So when the Rays finally did build a new stadium somewhere in the wide world of sports, and the A's sort out their issues, right? Do you know how many fans that adds to, like, let's just say bare minimum they reach 20,000 per game average. Okay,
Yeah.
let's just say like it's like 2/3 full stadium based on what they're going to build. Then you're adding 3.24 million fans to MLB's attendance. That's a lot of fans, Mark.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money, and it's a lot of merchandise. It's a lot of concessions. It's a lot of parking spots. It's a lot of, yeah, it's a lot of.
Well, yeah, my mind went straight to merchandise when you said that too.
Mhm.
Just kind of a real quick sidebar. I don't know if you saw Boston's new City Connect uniform.
No, I haven't. I missed it.
It's green, it's supposed to reflect that whole idea of the monster. And they had the yellow one, which was, I think, supporting of like the Boston Marathon. But this one is all about the monster that they just came out with. So that's kind of
I gotta
crazy.
look it up now that we're talking about
Yeah,
it.
when I first heard that, I was looking for more than just a green shirt. I was looking for some kind of image of what the monster might look like, but I think it's just mostly just reflecting the color of the monster. And but that's pretty cool.
That's not that is a pleasant green. I
Yep.
thought you were gonna say it was like highlighter yellow green like that. But yeah, I like it. That's pretty, that says I'm Irish. I'm a Red Sox fan and yeah, no, it's all good. I think that, they'll sell a lot of those for sure.
Oh yeah.
That's yeah.
Yeah, whoever came with the idea of City Connect really had something going.
Hmm. Should have been called Wallet Connect.
Well, that's what all those new fans need to buy. Every one of them needs to go out there and get the original, and get the City Connect. Oh,
Yeah.
I gotta say, I love ours. The Tampa Bay Rays City Connect shirts have got to be the coolest thing out there. I mean, the whole grit and glow theme is just amazing. You know, we incorporate something with the Devil Ray on there, the skateboard for the St. Pete type area, and some of that. It may not make as much sense in a couple of years, but right now it's really cool.
Two things about that. When they build a new stadium, it has to have grit and glow lighting capabilities so that
Ooh,
when they have the nights when they're wearing the grit and glow, like I'm talking light it up, like black lighting and everything else, like make it cool. And number two, they need to build a stadium with the ability to host X Games every year and just make it part of their identity and part of their attraction. Like saying, when you want the X Games, you want skateboarding, you want this, have some ramps, outside that kids can hang out at. And I think if you're going to go that route, you need to wear it with, all of the guts and glory of it.
I love that, brother. Jeez, I can't wait to see that in our new stadium, wherever it may be. But oh gosh, we were talking about you were talking about the numbers overall for the season thus far, and I was looking a little bit here from Rivalry weekend what we had. Before we get into the numbers, that I want to say I absolutely adored watching Juan Soto as a Met playing against the Yankees. And when he went out there in the outfield, pardon me, I didn't see anybody throwing anything at him, but I loved it that all these fans in their Yankees jerseys turned their back away from the field. So when Soto was there, it's like, and it wasn't with hate or anger. It was more of like with fun, I'm hoping anyway. And that's to me is again part of baseball that makes it enjoyable. It's not always going on with what's performing on the field. And sometimes it's something what the fans are doing as well, whether it's a beer snake or just turning your back on Juan Soto.
Yeah, I think fans tend to want to speak to players in a certain way and they have their ways of doing it and I'd much rather that than the cursing and
Oh
swearing
yeah.
and the kids hearing all that kind of stuff. So yeah, if they want to turn their backs on them, that's great. I think that there's a lot of other timings that I would have wanted to do that as a fan too.
Yep. Yep.
There really
Oh,
are.
well, I love it. I got to tickle out. Say, okay, I'm curious to see how many of those fans, when they turned around on their backs, how many of them had 99 on the back. If there was any with Soto's number, that would have been interesting. But no, I was looking to see how many had Judge. But going back to Rivalry Week, it was interesting looking at viewership. Let's see. This is from MLB. The New York Mets versus Yankees Subway Series averaged 2.539 million viewers on ESPN, making it the most watched Sunday night baseball game in 7 years. Last one was in 2018. The game registered an increase of 69%, I should say, of plus 69% compared to last year's Sunday night baseball average. Wow.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is. And if you talk about actual attendance, see, with a total attendance of 1,608,475 and average attendance of 35,744, I guess, per game, Rivalry weekend was MLB's best attended weekend prior to Memorial Day since 2012 on both measures.
Wow.
Jeez. Now, streaming is still relatively new. I mean, it's not decades upon decades, but let's see, the Saturday, May 17th of Rivalry weekend marked the second most watched day ever on MLB TV, trailing only 2023's opening day.
Wow. You're rivaling opening day. That's a big event, right?
Yeah, yeah. And not surprisingly, the Subway Series was a big part of this too. Let's see, the return of Mets All-Star Juan Soto to the Bronx resulted in the Subway Series registering as the third, May 17th, and fourth, May 16th, most watched games ever. Let me say it again. Most watched games ever on MLB TV.
Wow.
Wow. Third and fourth. Merchandise sales increased 45% during Rivalry weekend across the Fanatics network of sites, including all clubs on MLBshop.com. So any way you look at this, Matt, it's just nuts. I mean, social engagement on on the social media platforms was up 37% compared to last year. It was a very profitable weekend, I guess you could say, not merely just in sales, but getting people involved with the game.
Yeah, I agree. No, it's great to see. And you always want to highlight the positives. I know we're quick to jump on the negatives on occasion. So this is one of those days when you want to highlight the good. And the fact that we have that to lean on is great. And talking about more good, the Rays are going to be putting Evan Longoria into the Rays Hall of Fame, which, I don't know. I would guess maybe 75% of Rays fans you would ask, when you're at a game, you would say, "Have you heard about the Rays Hall of Fame?" And they may or may not know about it. But for those of us that do, you can kind of list them for us, Mark, in terms of who is already in there and who
Oh.
Evan will be joining.
Well, I had two of them. I had Wade Boggs. I definitely knew that. And I knew Fred McGriff, both of those fellas. Now,
Right.
the other two I didn't think of, and you prodded me a bit and I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. And that is, of course, the gentleman who I'm absolutely so glad to hear he's in there, and that's Mr. Dave Wills. He's a legend, and he has meant so much to Rays over all time. And to him and his family, I want to say thanks for having him there. And the next guy, the dance partner of Pedro Martinez, but seriously, a man who made a big difference with the Rays organization and baseball overall. And that's Mr. Don Zimmer. And wow. But I'm glad to see Evans getting into this. A lot of these places, I wonder how tight they are as far as saying, well, if we're going to put anybody in there, they have to be so high up that we're not going to just put somebody in every year necessarily. And they haven't.
Right. So I have questions.
Oh.
So if you were to pick one executive, one manager, and one player to add after Evan goes in, who would it be in each case?
Well, it's easy to think of the guys that are there right now, and but I think Neander would have to be in there. And as managers, I'm hard pressed with. I love Cash, but Joe Madden was the impetus of actually turning things around. And if it hadn't been for Joe, I don't know what Kevin would have had to walk into.
Now, I want to throw this out there because how he left, right? Does that play into it?
Oh.
No, you have the team being where it was. It was a very competitive team. and then he gets an offer from the Cubs, and he's just like, "What, guys? It's
Yeah.
been great, but I've got to go win a World Series in Chicago and change history." Does that change anything at all? I don't think.
It's it shouldn't, but you know, I mean, there's it being from Kentucky, we've talked about this before. Basketball is everything, and
Mhm.
occasionally you see there's been a coach going from U of K to U of L, and
Right.
that the particular coach I'm thinking, I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to give him any credit for anything as a human being, but I could not hold him. Uh, I would not badmouth him from going from one team to the other, but several people saw it as a betrayal when he left the University of Kentucky to go to U of L. People who were his friends, air quotes,
Right.
um, stepped away. They were not going to have anything to do with him. He was a betrayal as far as they were concerned. So no, with Joe, it's anything. It's a business decision. It's like,
Yes.
okay, I have talent. I can develop talent, and this looks like the best place I can do it for and really make a difference for in a quick way of doing it. So I salute Joe, and yes, he would be the manager I would have on there.
Now, what about Andrew Friedman as an executive?
I see that goes back to with my history of the game is not deep enough. Freeman is one I is very strongly considered, but Neander is just one I know that I felt like has done a lot. And
So I think the difference between the two would be like has stuck it out and he got offers from everybody, from the
yeah,
Yankees, from Boston, from what I heard anyway. I don't know facts, but I know he was in high demand, right? And he said, "No, thank you. I'm happy where I am. I've got with the team that I want to help continue develop down here." And he signed long term. I have no idea what his financial situation is with his contract with the Rays, what he gets paid. But I think that's the difference. I think like Joe and Andrew both, decided that they wanted to go to greener pastures.
yeah,
So I don't know, like with all these guys, like Don Zimmer was not with the Rays for a huge amount of time, right? Wade Boggs, same thing. So you're kind of fighting this whole, how long do they have to be? How significant does it have to be? Yada yada yada. So if we go just off of feelings, I mean, can make an argument for Randy Arozarena slapping the plate, right?
yep.
You can make an argument for Brett Phillips dancing his way into the outfield. And there's a lot of cases that you could bring up. But I think there's moments in each franchise's history that have to be highlighted. And I think, the intent is more aimed towards that. I think as somebody that lives in Canada, Jose Bautista is one that's with the Blue Jays, and I mean that bat flip is going to be historic forever, and regardless of whether or not it led to a World Series win, I mean you didn't have to. So I'm happy for Evan. I'm glad that he's going into the Rays Hall of Fame. It exists for anybody that didn't know. And I don't know who will be next, but I think it's nice for the Rays to highlight that kind of thing. And hopefully, once they build the new stadium, they have an area where they can actually have them all notable and get fans familiar with what it is they did for the franchise and why they were important.
Well, I look forward to seeing Evan do that as well. Going up here, I love it. He's going to be going to the Hall of Fame. He's going to sign on for a day, retire in a day. All this is going to be going on. I think it's the weekend of June 6th, 7th, 8th. So that should be a lot of fun. History is burning, man. I'm curious to see where we wind up this year. It's not necessarily the mentality like the Yankees. If you got to win the World Series every year, but you've got to be working into a position where that's actually something that you like to think we could achieve. I mean, so where we are again, 49 games this far, 23 wins, 26
Three game,
losses.
3 games out of a wild card spot.
Yeah.
So I mean, like let's just say, for argument's sake, that Ha-Sung Kim and Shane McClanahan come back healthy. Like just forget everybody else and just say, okay, those two guys come back. How many wins does that add to the Rays,
Yeah.
overall? I would say 6. So at that point, they are, over the course of a full season, they are in a playoff contention spot, right? So, and then in that case, you're looking at, okay, who are the 3 starters you're going to have in a short series? Who are, you start playing that game, and what does it
Hmm.
look like at that point? which prospects come in? What do the Rays have to deal at the deadline? Who could they target to bring in? Can they afford that person? Yeah, 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 yeah. The game starts to get very interesting at that point, and you kind of say, this is why I'm a proponent of the wild card, and I love it because I can clearly remember this time of year when I was an Expos fan, you already knew who was in and out and who was going to win the division. Like you might have had a race between two teams in each division, but that was it.
Yep.
There was no there was no excitement. Everybody turned the game off at some point and just said, do I really care whether they win or lose? No, there's still 10 games out of the first. So, and that was it. You turned every your attention to the next year. So, yeah, I'm glad. I think the Rays are in a weird spot because they are further away than we're used to over the recent past, right? And I think that's what you're hearing from a lot of Rays fans, where they want the Rays to just dominate all the time, and they're just not ready to dominate yet. But you can see the exciting talent that they have to kind of start to rummage through and get them headed in the right direction. I just wish that I want to say it this way. I hope that they are more aggressive early in the season if they think they have a fighting chance. That's what I'm going to say because they have so much talent coming up that they're going to have to make room for that you don't want to end up in a spot like what the Orioles are in now,
Oh, Lord.
where you trade away so much talent that it depletes your ability to compete. You know, I feel so bad for them because they waited for so long to have that kind of dominance and they just kind of threw it, threw caution to the wind. And if their ownership knew they were going to let Corbin Burns walk, they shouldn't have made the moves that they made.
Yeah.
And it's sad to say, but that's what I'm hoping with the Rays, that they commit at some point, that it's aggressive if it has to be aggressive, and that if not, if they want to continue building like they did last year in midseason, that's fine. Just pick one or the other. Because if you're sitting somewhere in the middle, you're just going to hurt yourself and the fans because they're going to watch guys walk away. I saw the Jays do that with Jose Bautista and Edwin Encarnacion and get nothing for them. And so that does nothing for your franchise. It just sets you back for years. So pick a lane. Right?
Oh, no, no. I agree, man. I tell you, it is exciting to watch these, but you brought up the Orioles, and I was like, geez, Pete. I think there is a situation where front office need to take a little bit more responsibility instead of just firing the manager.
Yes.
And Brandon Hyde I just felt like sometimes you can only do so much with the tools that you have. And if the front office isn't giving you those tools, guess what? It's time to walk. But they didn't let that happen. They fired him. They didn't give him time. Uh,
There
so
are franchises out there that will trip over the phone to pick him up and bring him in. I know that for a fact. And I don't know how many offers he has already, how many people have made that call to make the initial contact and to kind of start the process because it is a long process. It's not
yeah,
something you do
yeah.
overnight. And I'm sure he has a lot of things to consider as well with his family, with everything else. So, but no doubt in my mind, he will be back in the manager's seat at some point. And then he's too good at what he does, and he showed too much promise doing what he did with the Orioles to not have it earn him another shot.
Well, I wish that team well, and I hope they get a little introspection in their front office to be able to build a future with that as well. But I really feel great about the Rays. There's always going to be something to be critical about. What fun is it otherwise? But my gosh, that's when you asked about Friedman and Neander. I know more about Neander because of my history here, and the I think the longevity of what he has done has proven time and time again to work. And a lot of times when many of us are quick to judge and say, "Are you kidding me? You made that trade?" And of course, 2 years later, the guys he made the trades with are saying, "Are you kidding me? Did I make that trade with Eric?"
Funny you say that. I'll just mention one quick. Like last year or 2 years ago, you would have said, "Oh, the Rays traded Matthew Liberatore for Rosarena. Oh, it turned out great for the Rays, right?"
Yep.
And then now you're looking at Matt throwing, and you're like, "Oh, where's Randy?" So it's
Oh,
year to year. You never know where you're going to end up. The Rays make a lot of trades. I think that's the catch-all too. They put themselves out there a lot.
yeah.
So yeah, he's
Well,
done a
and a great farm system. That's it. You know that better than anybody. So yeah, that sounds like a lot going on, brother. I'm excited. The game today kind of recharged me because sometimes I get like, oh, come on, guys, make me feel better about this team. Let me feel better about this season. And they certainly did that today. So thank you, all of you out there that are playing the game. And I'm not a fair weather fan, but sometimes it just hurts.
Mhm. Pick up in your step after they win. That's just for sure.
Yep.
If not, you're not a real fan at that point.
As long as I'm not the guy saying, we won and they lost. No, it's always we or it's always they. And I prefer to say we all the time, even though I have nothing to do with the results of that game. So,
I used to think that I did. Like if I did XYZ and somebody hit a home run, I had to do XYZ, right? No. I wish I had that kind of power. Angels in the outfield, was that what it was about? Where he thought, yes, see? Yeah.
that's it, brother. That's it.
It's still working.
All right. Well, let's hope the Rays keep making plenty of magic, and we're going to keep watching them and sharing that with you, plus a lot of other things. And we could go on, but it's getting late.
I agree. All right.
All right, man. Well, thanks again, brother, for another fun night. And all of you folks out there, thanks again for joining us here on Baseball Biz. It's always a blast, and we'll talk with you again real soon. Thanks, Matt.
No problem. Yeah.
Just a reminder, you can find Matt at matgermain.bsky social. That's at mattgermain.bsky.social or Mark at baseballbizondeck.bsky.social. You may also find Baseball Biz on Deck on iHeart, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and at baseballbizondeck.com. Special thanks to XTakeRUX for the music, Rocking Forward.